Hi there all. Now, we're going to be looking at the IS-2B, or Berlin, the next tank in the quartet. And I wanted to start this video off in the garage, and subsequent videos as well, because someone hinted to me, or suggested rather, that not only equipment, but it would be a good idea to look at the crew skills. So, going from a base crew, ignore for the most part the BIA on it. Typically not a crew skill I would advise for the first. This thing has very poor gun handling. For your gunner, you want to get snapshot on it, and then once you work into your second set of skills, it's a heavy. You most likely want repairs. Failing that, I would say take your pick on whatever you would fancy. Now the driver, smooth ride, because the aforementioned bad gun handling again, and as with the gunner, probably go with repairs for the second set. Now those are the two I wanted to state first, because bad gun handling, you must focus on those skills. But for the commander, Sixth Sense, it pretty much goes without saying. Nearly every tank you need it. Arguably, maybe not Arty, that just depends on what you want to focus on. And then for the second skill, repairs. Now, the loader, safe storage, that's another one of those skills that's pretty much without a second thought. You put it on your tank. And then as with all the other crew members, repairs for the second. Now, as with what I did, once you get that third skill kicked off, you can swap it over to BIA if you feel so inclined. Because there's not really any other skills that you particularly need with this tank. So it's pretty much up to preference at that point. Now, I must state, before we get into the match, I had about an hour's time to just mess around with the vehicle. I had, I believe, 3 matches with it. 2 of them were 2.7. We're not going to be looking at those. I don't believe that's a good show of this vehicle's. You know, it's top tier. That's the best case scenario. It's a tier 7. You will be seeing tier 8s and 9s with some frequency. So, thankfully, the third match was a tier 8 match, and predominantly tier 8. So, without further ado, let's have a look at said match. So, here we've got our IS-2 on Sacred Valley, and it is a predominantly tier 8 match. So this is going to be a decent show of how this tank will normally perform in a match. Now, being Sacred Valley, this is good. This tank is a brawler, and we're going to be heading up north so we can mitigate some of the issues that it has with gun handling, which is going to be very evident, and I will undoubtedly state this incessantly, so my apologies ahead of time. Ah yes, and before we get into position, pausing for a second and having a look at Starshield. Because what we're going to do, as I said, is head up here to the northern side of the map, coming up and taking the inside position, because we're quick and I'm not overly concerned about the top 2 mediums going that way, because as you saw, we've got a bunch of our heavies who hopefully will take the corner. Now we could go here on the bottom inside. You really don't want to do that, because there's undoubtedly going to be a TD up here and a medium up top inside the buildings, or on the corner I've got the heavy tank icon. So you're being shot from 2 angles at once. You don't want to be in that position. We're going to be up here solely having to worry about this, and then pushing out this way, because this is an outdated version of the map in Starshield, and there's actually a road there, and we're only going to have to worry about being shot over this way, not up top. Now, you'll notice I don't have any fodder zones listed. That's because this map is very situational, based on where the enemy is, and you've got to bear that in mind. Plus, you've got a lot of areas now where you've got buildings that you can either get in short order, or mounds, whether it be here, this ridge, you've got a new hill here, we can use gun depression. There's a lot of avenues where you're not going to be in the urban for that long, so it's be aware of the enemy. Typically, where I've got locations on the map are where you want to stay, either on the western side of it if you've got the south spawn, or on the eastern side of it if you've got the northern spawn, just to play it safe out the gate. Now, let's get back into the match at hand and show you what we're going to do up north, where I've detailed it. If I can stop fuddling around with the controls. Right. Ah, yes, and another thing, and I neglected to mention this in StratSketch, you're about to see an E25 pop up just off the side. There you go. Typically, tank destroyers or some allies will sit back where the IS-3 KB4 are now and try and shoot whatever comes that way, or gets lit on the high side. That is only useful late game. I've never found that productive. So we're not going to camp there, taking this position up top, because we've got those two heavies with us, the T-29 and KB4, and we're going to pop, as I say, the tank in the side. There we go, as it comes by. Now, since the T-29 is taking command of that corner, we're going to go ahead and be a bit more aggressive and push up to this side of the mound. I continue to penalise this poor stock T-29. I even think he had the 76, poor bugger. Ah, yes. Now, they've got a Young Tiger and a Tiger with the Rudy up top. So we're not going to push that beeline. We're going to come down there, as I've shown on the map, and push for this IS-6s. Oh, and watch this. That was on the move, but that was not all that far away, and we still waffled the shot on the D-25. This thing has atrocious gun handling. Let's go penalise the poor little bugger. Or better yet, I'm going to shoot that Young Tiger 88 in the aft end. Or the Tiger. Okay. Oh, yes. It's not just gun handling which I have a problem with. That Rudy fired AP that went clean through the face of this thing's turret. Not a good show of armour. Oh, and the Tiger gets cheeky. And loses his head. Balls. There again, you saw her, Rudy, clean through the front of this thing. Oh, bugger all, we can't push past this fat bastard. And the Rudy gets cocky anyway. Now, since we got command of the northern side of the map, let's go play with this wayward Tiger P. Keeping in mind what we've got at the side and where that E25 was. EDC bounces off. Pop the Tiger P. And there's that E25 we wanted to be wary of, but our allies are keeping him in check. So let's go play with this T-34, who's playing with our IS-3 out on the G-line. There we go, check it behind us. Oh, thank God he whiffed, because he would have had no problem going to the front of this thing. Pop in the T-34, now check it again. E-25's got the attentions of our allies. So we're going to go play with the KB-85. Though, CDC pops up, so immediately as we waffle that shot on him, we're going to push round. We don't need to be shot by two targets at once. Only gets the CDC and the IS-6 gets the KB-85. Good, good, good. Now, we're to come back south since we're mopping this match up and play with this Louvet, who's out on his lonesome. I suppose I should call it low, because some people call it Louvet, some people call it Lion, some's Lever. Damned if I know. I should check into that. So it's low now, slow low. Yeah, I don't think we want to play with a Rhymethal up top, not with our accuracy. Hello. Hello, buddy. Keeping an eye on making certain that those two tanks can't pop us. So we're going to walk around to this corner, pop him quick. Oh, balls, left him with 8, and then immediately rack up because we don't want to be shot by 3 tanks at once. There we are, hurting. They're going to back in this little cubby because we do not have the armor to bounce a shot from below. That the IS-2 steel, well, there, you could see him highlighted now. Let him deal with it. And he's looking away, so we're going to try, and we miss. And I'm going to show you in Tanks GG why you will miss in this thing often, though at the same time try and show you why it's still a decent tank. There we go, popping that right middle. Now that felt like a really decent match, so let's go have a look at that after battle and see just how decent it was. So, that was 100,000 credits earned, rather good I must say. Considering that's a 2-7 tank and it was a 4,000 damage match, so that was exceedingly good. Now, that being an exceptional game, I must state that the other 2 matches I did run, which were about 2,000 damage, were less than 50k credit income, which feels less than the IS-122S. Though the IS-2 Berlin, I believe, is going to have some credit earning problems, potentially. As you see, we fired 14 shots, 11 hit, and 11 penned. This is an oddity, which is why I'm going to be linking the other 2 matches in the description. You will not be penning targets 100% of the time with any consistency. That's why I say this is very much an oddity. And that was good because we didn't need any premium ammo. It was a tier 8 match. We were shooting things in the aft end or in the side. Though if you get a tier 8 match or a 9, you're brawling against other heavies, you're not going to be penning for damage nearly to that 100% that we did in that match. And I believe that is severely going to hamper this thing's crediting potential. We'll look a bit more into that in Tanks GG here in just a second. But going back to likening this thing to the IS-122S, yeah, it's the same gun, same pen, but that thing's got 0.39 accuracy. This has 0.44. And with that said, let's now get into that Tanks GG so I can show you just why you might have some problems with this thing. Now we're going to be comparing the IS-2 Berlin to the IS for obvious reasons, the infantry counterpart, the T-29, which I believe everyone would agree is the staple 2-7 heavy tank, and lastly the Tiger, a personal favourite of mine. Now, initially, you're going to see you've got nearly 2,000 DPM, which is above average for the tier. It's dead on par with the other 2-7 Russian heavies, but it's better than the T-29 by a fair bit. Less than the Tiger, obviously, but that thing's the chief of DPM at T-7 for heavies. Now, your penetration, 175. That was right on the IS-122S, but it's got 0.39 accuracy. And then you've got the T-29 at 198 and the Tiger at 203. This is low pen for a 2-7 heavy tank. And with the 0.44 accuracy and the gun handling that we'll look at, it can make it very aggravating to hit a shot, if not outright pen, a weak spot that you're aiming for. Now when you do hit, you've got 390 alpha. That's good, especially since you've got good DPM as well. So you've got good DPM and good alpha. That makes the tank workable. Now, going down into that weapon handling, 0.33 aim time effectively. That is, it's bad. Yes, it's bad for the course for the Russian 122s, but it puts you well below the other 2.7 heavy tanks. And once you tie that aim time to a bad end accuracy at 0.44, that's again worse than the other 2.7 heavies, same as the other Russian heavies, but it's one of my reasons for some indifference toward this tank. And then to top it off, 0.23 dispersion. That is worse than the IS by 10%. It's worse than the T-29 and even more pronounced if you consider the fact that T-29 can use a vert stab. The IS cannot. The Tiger, good gun handling. And then lastly, 6 degrees gun depression. That makes this thing very tricky to use on uneven terrain. The Tiger, surprisingly, even though it's 7 degrees, you can get away with a bit more. T-29, Russian, well, compared to the Russian heavies, it's got much more. 10 degrees, stable for the Americans. Now, into the mobility. This thing is average for a 2.7 heavy. 34 kph, power to weight ratio, that's, well, much worse than the IS at 13 compared to 15 horsepower per ton. Bit more than the T-29 and the Tiger, but it doesn't feel all that much quicker, despite the fact that the terrain resistance is good, which is notably better than the IS. 1.05 rather to 1.34 on medium terrain, and soft terrain not really all that much different, but that's not enough to compensate for that discrepancy in power to weight ratio. So this thing's slower than the IS, but it does make up in mobility with maneuverability with a 38 traverse speed compared to the IS's 35, and T-29 and Tiger much worse in the mid-20s. So it's average on mobility, good on maneuverability, which somewhat compensates for the lackluster gun handling and the gun depression. Now, the armour on it, it's not going to be doing you any favours. We saw that within the match. 2.7 medium tank was pettiness with blatant disregard. And looking further into that, going into the 3D model, at a relative angle, 140 lower plate, 150 upper plate, and then on the shoulders, 120, 150, just about as it is on the front. Now you've got thin bits along the top near the driver's hatch, where it's about 170 thick, and the driver's hatch itself being 210, but most people aren't going to aim there. And then you've got a bigger problem with the front of the turret, and going off to the sides at an angle, still about that 120 to 150. And then if you think your spaced armor on the mantlet's going to be doing you much good, that's only on the periphery, around the outside edge. The inside, anywhere around the gun, is again that 150 to down to 100. And to top things off, you've got this huge knob on top that's 100 to 120. So this thing's armor, from my experience, does not stand up to what it needs to be. Even in a 2.7 fight, it's only going to help you against standard rounds from mediums and possibly heavy tanks if they get a lower roll. In a tier 8 and 9, nearly everything's going to mop the floor with you. And I would dare say even in a tier 8, but getting back into the stats. Lastly on the list, what we need to look at is view range. 350 meters. That's the average for a Russian heavy tank at this tier. T-29's got more, Tiger's got more, I believe most of the other 2.7 heavies in fact too. So this thing, if you're out on your own, you're gonna have some problems unless you're conveniently using bushes or something to mitigate that issue. You will not be spotting for yourself reliably. Now, hopefully I haven't scared anyone off yet by listing off all these negatives about the tank, but you can somewhat lessen this effect by running that gun lane drive, getting that aim time down. Your vents, that's going to help most of the stats on the vehicle. It'll take the end accuracy down to 0.43 from 0.44. Doesn't seem like much, but every bit counts. Takes a smidge off the aim time and the dispersion as well. And then gun rammer, obviously. If you've got good DPM, you must accentuate that and boost it as much as you can. Now, as a summarization on the IS-2 Berlin in particular, if you want a T7 premium heavy that has good DPM, the alpha is good, you don't mind a slight lack of AP, and possibly using a considerable amount of AP SAR and a tier 8 in 9 match, you don't mind atrocious gun handling, I think you'll be alright with this vehicle. Honestly, as much as I keep saying all these stats are incredibly bad, it's aggravating, but not enough to make this thing outright horrendous. Now, on the other side of things, should you buy this since it's limited time? If you're a collector, yes, but if you're looking solely for a crew trainer, I highly advise you go over here, pick up an IS-6. It sees the same tiers. It only sees 2.9s. It's pref. It's got much better armor, despite being the same on paper. 100mm on the front. It's much better angled, so you've got that going for you. It's got the same gun, but it can use avert stab, so it's got much better gun handling. It's the same speed, roughly. I bet yet it's even quicker, slightly. Better power to weight ratio as well. So if you are solely looking at this as, should I get this as a Russian heavy tank crew trainer, I cannot stress enough, do yourself a favour, go with the IS-6. It's a much better all-round tank. But purely as a collector, go ahead and pick up the IS-2. Though, if you must choose just one or two out of this package, you want to set this on the lower end of the priority. Now, with all that said, thank you all very much for watching, as always. Hope you found this informative, if not entertaining. And let you all look forward to the Grumpy B and the Rudy videos, which will be coming out after this, which I must say, and nearly everyone else I think would agree with me, are the most fun tanks out of the lot. But yes, you all do take care.